Yeah, welcome to ENT student for discussion on acute otitis media and otitis media with effusion in adults by Dr. K. Aishwarya. You can start.
Acute otitis media and otitis media with effusion in adults. Acute otitis media and otitis media with effusion are often temporarily related due to pathology also seen in childhood. They are also encountered due to specific adult-related etiologies.
So AOM, just a moment, please. I'll just brief it out and then you have to change it. So it is also called as AOM, as you could see here. It is also called as AOM. So you can call it as AOM. I'm just trying to annotate it. So we can call it as AOM, that is acute otitis media. Another thing is otitis media with effusion. So they are related to childhood diseases. And they are seen because of adult related etiologies. So different etiologies are also there. Next.
The definition of acute otitis media in adults. It translates as acute middle ear inflammation. It is generally seen in infective conditions with the causative organism being viral or bacterial. It is a relatively common childhood condition and is seen less often in adults.
So as you could see here, just a moment please, once again I'm using, annotation is not going off on my screen. Are you able to see anything written on the screen?
No, sir.
Nothing seen. Okay, fine. So we can as well understand here about this AOM. It is an acute middle ear inflammation. So what is otitis media? AOM is like acute middle ear inflammation. It's not with perforation. Generally seen in infective conditions. What are the infective conditions? That is viral and bacterial. As we all know, it is viral and bacterial. And it is common in children and less in adults. Next.
Prevalence and incidence. An international multi-center primary care setting study recorded the total number of patients seen with symptoms consistent with the diagnosis of acute otitis media. 16% of the total number was over the age of 15. This condition is therefore not as uncommon in the adult population as was previously thought. It remains, however, predominantly a disease of childhood and more specifically infancy. A separate study calculated the relative risk of getting acute otitis media to be about 200 times higher during the first 2 years of life than as an adult.
So according to this slide, what we are getting is the last point if we see. So we get almost like the first 2 years of life is very important. That is almost 200 times. It's not one time or two times. First 2 years, they are most prone to get this. Why? Because of this milk drinking habit in a horizontal position. The last but one point I am trying to point out, it is a disease of childhood, especially infancy, that is less than 1 year of age. So childhood and less than 1 year of age, you can keep it in mind. And then 16% of the total number was over age of 15. So even out of 100, you can take 16 cases were about the age of 15. So adults also, it is more common. So adults also more common. So according to this study. Next.
Etiology. Bacterial infection accounts for the majority of adult acute otitis media cases presenting to ENT doctors. The organisms found are similar to those in pediatric cases.
So as you could see in this picture, I'll continue. So bacterial infection is the most important thing. So bacterial one is the most important thing. It's not the viral. So initially it starts as a viral upper respiratory tract infection and it acts as a acute otitis media initiator. So what are the organisms that are more commonly present? So according to this study, as you could see here, it is Haemophilus influenzae. So we say Streptococcus Haemophilus moraxella, but it is given as HSM. So Haemophilus influenzae is first given, and Streptococcus pneumoniae is the second one, and other bacterium and no growth is also equally predominant. So Haemophilus, other bacterium and no growth. It can be like this for almost 26%. And Streptococcus pneumoniae is second one, and Moraxella catarrhalis being the next one along with Streptococcus aureus. So no growth is also seen actually accordingly, and based on that we calculate. When someone asks you, you should tell as Haemophilus is the most common, Streptococcus pneumonia, that is pneumococcus, is the second most common, and third most common is Moraxella catarrhalis and Streptococcus aureus. And no growth is also equally seen along with other bacteria. Next.
Well, coming to the diagnosis, history, unlike presentation of the pediatric population, the affected adult can usually describe symptoms in detail and seek treatment of his or her own violation. Despite this, some may still delay treatment until a fulminating middle ear infection results in perforation of the tympanic membrane. The pain experienced together with the resultant mucopurulent otorrhea should be distinguished from bullous myringitis, which produces a similar history of hearing loss and increasing otalgia, but ends in a bloody otorrhea secondary to bursting of blood blisters on the tympanic membrane.
So how does the last point we are seeing it again? So pain, along with that, there is a pain, number one. Number two is mucopurulent discharge. Why mucopurulent? In middle ear, there are mucoid glands. If it is a mucopurulent one, definitely mucoid component. Every student should know this. Mucoid component is a part of middle ear only. Mucoid component is a part of middle ear only. There cannot be mucoid discharge from the external ear. If there is a mucus related thick mucus is present, definitely it is a middle ear because of the Brenner cells that are present, that submucosal region. That. And then how do you distinguish from bullous myringitis? Myringitis is a tympanic membrane only involvement. Myringitis is only tympanic membrane involvement, whereas otitis media is middle ear involvement. So bullous myringitis, the name itself says there is hearing loss and increasing otalgia, but ends in bloody otorrhea secondary to bursting of blood blisters. So blisters are there in the tympanic membrane, more commonly, for example, influenza. So viral infection leading to this particular bullous myringitis, that is more commonly seen in that. And if you take the second point, as you see in this, some delay in treatment, there can be a perforation of the tympanic membrane. Whenever there is pus formation in the middle ear, there can be tension creation. So for example, you put water in a balloon, increase the water content, at one point of time, the balloon bursts because of excess of water. That is what is called as ASOM. What is the difference between AOM and ASOM? If there is a perforation, you can call it as ASOM. And especially in the pediatric population, the presentation is different. Adult population is different. First point we are discussing. So they usually describe the symptoms in detail and seek the treatment for his or her own volition. You see, it is voluntary. What is volition? Voluntarily they take the treatment. I request the student to point out the points which I am trying to deal. Okay. If you have a pointer
Okay.
like me, like how I write in the class, you can just underline it because I am not able to annotate from this side. Okay. Next
Okay.
slide.
The two conditions occasionally occur together. In those cases of acute otitis media presenting before perforation occurs, hearing loss, tinnitus, and otalgia are the cardinal symptoms. Secondary symptoms include balance disturbance, general malaise, pyrexia, and headache.
So as you could see, first point I am discussing. First point, bullous myringitis and acute otitis media, they occur together. So once there is a middle ear infection, along with that there can be a tympanic membrane bulla also present. Second point I am discussing is in AOM presenting before the perforation occurs. So if the perforation is occurring, pus will be drained out. Why is the perforation occurring in acute otitis media? The question will be asked. Then you should say increasing a pressure and the pus does not find any pathway. The thinnest pathway is bursting of the tympanic membrane coming out through a perforation. So it also causes hearing loss. Second point you could see hearing loss, tinnitus because of pressure on the round window membrane, and otalgia, which is because of the pain, because of the fiber stretching inside the middle ear. And third point I'm telling is it can cause balance disturbance. Why? Because it can stimulate the lateral semicircular canal, or it can also cause a disturbance because of entry into the inner ear. So there can be malaise, pyrexia, and headache. The patient sometimes can present with facial palsy also. Facial palsy because horizontal segment of the facial nerve is dehiscent in few of the patients, Almost 50% of the cases, the horizontal segment of the facial nerve is dehiscent. Next.
Examination. Otoscopy may be
You
challenging
also
as the
kindly point, excuse me, please point out what you are reading, because the viewers of the video should know what you are reading.
Sure, sir.
Yeah.
Otoscopy may be challenging as the bulging red tympanic membrane may prove difficult to focus on until the examiner realizes the drum is more lateral than is usually the case and withdraws the otoscope slightly to allow the drum to appear in focus. If the tympanic membrane has already perforated, it will have reverted to its usual anatomical position and the perforation may be visible. Pus may be seen in the external auditory meatus and on the tympanic membrane.
The first point what we are discussing is the tympanic membrane is a thin structure. For example, you are having a balloon wherein one of the part of the balloon is thinner, it forms a secondary balloon in that if you are blowing air. The tympanic membrane forms a nipple-like structure, a thin nipple-like structure where it usually bursts. The tympanic membrane is laterally pushed and it has got a lot of pus inside it. So one thing. If the perforation already occurred, if AOM becomes ASOM, then you can see the perforation. And you can see the pus even in the external artery canal. Next.
Microsuction is often required to allow adequate inspection of the perforated drum. Confusion can arise between a normal tympanic membrane with a profusion of blood vessels radiating from the umbo and a case of acute otitis media. The most reliable otoscopic indicator of acute otitis media has been found to be tympanic membrane bulging. The diagnosis should therefore be made on a combination of history and otoscopy. Pure tone audiometry is usually only performed if the diagnosis of acute otitis media has been missed, but it typically shows a significant conductive hearing loss in the affected ear.
So last point I am discussing is pure tone audiometry can show you conductive hearing loss because middle ear is affected. Third point I am discussing is, show the third point please. So what is the otoscopic indicator? It is a nipple formation, that is bulging. Tympanic membrane bulging is the most important thing. So based on history and otoscopy, you can diagnose. Second point I am trying to tell you here is, there is always a confusion between normal tympanic membrane and profusion of blood vessels. Because there is a cartwheel appearance for the particular tympanic membrane during this hyperemia stage, exudation stage. There are various stages of ASOM like hyperemia stage, exudation stage, pre-suppression stage, suppression stage, okay, and stage of coalescent mastocytosis and stage of resolution. These are all the stages of this particular this ASOM, as you could see. First point what you are discussing is, when you have a doubt, you should always suck the secretions. Suction of the secretions is needed for knowing the perforation of the drum. Next.
Management. Most cases will resolve spontaneously and only analgesia is required. Although antibiotics are often given for this condition, there is no evidence to suggest efficacy in the adult population. Extrapolation from a Cochrane database review of antibiotics for acute otitis media in childhood suggests that treatment may reduce pain and the incidence of tympanic membrane perforation, but this remains untested by clinical research in an adult population. Studies have been bedeviled by diagnostic uncertainty.
The first point I am discussing now, only painkiller is required. Spontaneous resolution can be there. Sometimes antibiotics are required, but no evidence. So they say that oral antibiotics, they don't reach the middle ear. Oral antibiotics, they don't reach the middle ear. Rather, the antibiotics are given only for the sake of control of upper respiratory tract infection. So corroboratory infection, second point I am discussing about. And third point is that, so antibiotic in childhood in AOM suggests that antibiotics may reduce the pain and incidence of perforation, but it is still untested in adult population. In children, there is an evidence that it inhibits the perforation. So antibiotics inhibits the perforation in children, and there is always a diagnostic uncertainty in this. I request other people to kindly mute themselves. There is a disturbance. Other than the presenter and myself, please don't talk. Please mute yourself. Next point.
Approximately 10% have a perforation with otorrhea at presentation. Adults with acute otitis media are at higher risk of intracranial complications than adults with chronic otitis media. While all complications of acute otitis media are rare, acute mastoiditis, labyrinthitis, sigmoid sinus involvement, and intracranial abscesses have been described as the commonest. Facial palsy accounts for 30% of these complications. Full recovery of the facial nerve is the expected outcome in most cases. Unlike childhood disease, meningitis in adults is an uncommon complication.
So as you could see, last point, you rule out the meningitis. So one of the most commonest complication in adults is meningitis, as you could see. It's an uncommon in childhood. Third point I am telling you, facial nerve palsy can be there. Third point is facial nerve palsy, but outcome is good. Why facial nerve palsy? I told you, in 50% of the cases, horizontal segment of the facial nerve is dehiscent. That's why there is a chance for facial palsy when there is a pus accumulation in the middle ear. Second point I am telling you, in that complications, acute mastoiditis is very important. Acute mastoiditis is very important. You could see it over there. And labyrinthitis is also very important. Third one is sigmoid sinus thrombosis is also very important. Sigmoid sinusitis is also very important. And intracranial abscess is also very important. So in child, intracranial abscess, one of the reason is acute suppurative otitis media, and facial palsy is also very important. So when you take about the complication, second point only I am discussing, you should say, so intratemporal complications, intracranial complications. Intratemporal complications of CSOM are mastoiditis, petrositis, facial palsy, and labyrinthitis, MPFL, okay. And intracranial complications are extradural abscess, subdural abscess, and brain abscess, and meningitis, and then otitic hydrocephalus, and as you could see, lateral sinus thrombophlebitis. These are all very important, and everybody should know all these 10 complications. Everybody should by heart. And approximately 10% have a perforation. First point which I am discussing with otorrhea at presentation. So 1 out of 10 will have perforation. 1 out of 10 will have perforation. And adults with acute otitis media are higher risk of intracranial complications than adults with chronic otitis media. So intracranial complications can lead to severe complications in ASOM than CSOM, as you could see. So first point is very important. Adults will have higher risk of intracranial complications. Next.
Otitis media with effusion in adults. Definition: otitis media with effusion describes a collection of fluid in the middle ear, often extending into the mastoid air cells. This may be secondary to a severe upper respiratory tract infection. Most episodes of otitis media with effusion in adults will resolve untreated, but in some cases, they may persist for months or longer. In adult cases, it is important to ensure that other pathology has not been missed, and patients will often describe hearing loss, crackling, or popping of the ears, tinnitus, and sometimes balance disturbance.
So as you could see, OME. So what is the OME, otitis media with effusion, or blue ear, or glue ear, or non-suppurative otitis media, or uninfected otitis media? There are n number of names for this otitis media with effusion. It is not having pus. It is only having sterile fluid. Sterile fluid or sterile glue. What is otitis media with effusion? Sterile fluid or sterile glue is present in the middle ear. So what is the first point that is there? That is the definition. Once again, we read out the definition.
Otitis media with effusion describes a collection of fluid in the middle ear, often extending into the mastoid air cells.
So often extending into the mastoid air cells. Often extending into the mastoid air cells. So otitis media with effusion describes the collection of fluid in the middle ear, often extending into the mastoid air cells. Okay, often extending into the mastoid air cells. So what is this? It is secondary to severe upper respiratory tract infection. So otitis media effusion is a sequel of acute otitis media more commonly. There is a table in your standard textbook. Acute otitis media comes many a times, and it becomes chronic otitis media. And then most episodes of otitis media in adults, they resolve untreated, but may persist for months or longer. So for example, if you are traveling in a flight with a cold and there is a locking of your eustachian tube, suddenly there is egress of fluid outside that leads to otitis media with effusion. The tympanic membrane looks bluish and then the fluid inside, it is like with air bubbles when you are doing a Valsalva maneuver. Valsalva maneuver, you will have that particular air bubbles in that particular middle ear. That is a specialty of this otitis media with effusion. So, and in adults, you can have a hearing loss, which can be conductive or sensory neural hearing loss. Sensory neural hearing loss is because of the toxins that are going through the particular tympanic, the round window membrane or secondary tympanic membrane. And you have got a crackling sound, wood, 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 wood sound will be there, and tinnitus will be there, tick, 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 tick sound. And then sometimes balance disturbance because of pressure on the labyrinth. Next point.
Prevalence and incidence. For those with both a pediatric and adult ENT practice, it is well known that adults make up a very small proportion of the overall number of otitis media with effusion patients seen. Robinson described a prevalence of 0.6% over the age of 15.
So, in pediatric only you find otitis media with effusion. For them, there is adenoid hypertrophy also. Most of the pediatric cases associated with tonsillar hypertrophy also. And you may need a grommet insertion. What is the treatment of choice? Myringotomy plus grommet insertion. Myringotomy plus grommet insertion. And you may have a very small population in adults, like 6 out of 1,000 will have more than 15 years of age. Only 6 people in 1,000 will have the otitis media with effusion. Next. Just a moment, please. Just a moment, please. I want the participant number to be more than 100. You just see whatever you want to do. You can't enjoy like that. There is only a small time we are spending for the discussion. Only 40, 30 people are coming, means there is no point in putting all this. There are many people who should get benefited. Please kindly log in. I'm requesting everybody and tell your friends to log in. Your class is 150 student strength and we are taking this important classes and a lot of hard work being done. Please log in. Please log in. Other people kindly please mute yourself as you can continue. Etiology.
Coming to the etiology, infection. Most adults report an upper respiratory tract infection preceding an episode of otitis media with effusion. Sinus infections often occur in affected individuals. As in childhood, otitis media with effusion can follow on from acute otitis media or precede it. Leiderman et al. Reported that when cultures of effusions were matched with polymerase chain reaction detection, the organisms found were the same as in childhood disease.
So what are the important causes of this particular otitis media with effusion? So there are always 3 important points you should know: allergy, obstruction, and infection. AOI, you can call it as Association of Otolaryngologists of India. Association, our organization is called as Association of Otolaryngologists of India. It is called as AOI. That is allergy, obstruction, and infection. So as you could see, infection, there is a upper respiratory tract infection before this, and sinus infection can be there, and childhood otitis media. Third point, AOM, that is acute otitis media, may start and it ends into otitis media with effusion. Most of you students should be telling the answer that AOM, otitis media is with effusion, is a sequel of AOM. Otitis media with effusion is a sequel of AOM. Once again telling the point, otitis media with effusion is one of the sequel of acute otitis media. Very important. So the scientist, so you need not tell about the name of the scientist when you are telling. According to a research, you can just read it like that. Please don't spell the name of the scientist. So according to research, so what happened is after doing PCR, the organisms were found same as in childhood disease. What is that organisms? Number 1 is Moraxella. Okay. Number 2 is Haemophilus. Haemophilus, number 1. Number 2 is Streptococcus and Moraxella, and no bacteria in 26%, and some other bacteria in 26%. can see that particular slide which we have already done. Okay. The commonest being the Moraxella, Haemophilus and Moraxella, and then Streptococcus pneumoniae and Streptococcus aureus, as you have already seen. Next. Yeah.
PCR detected Streptococcus pneumoniae and Haemophilus influenzae in 15 of 19 samples. Other organisms found were Moraxella catarrhis and adenovirus. Fungi have been found in the middle ear fluid of 100% of individuals with otitis media with effusion, when effusions were collected and stained. Whether they also exist in the middle ear cavities of normal individuals is unknown. HIV has been reported as predisposing to a high rate of middle ear problems. In a study of 155 HIV positive adults, 18% were identified as having chronic middle ear disease, most with effusion.
So PCR is done, already discussed, Streptococcus pneumoniae, Haemophilus influenzae, Moraxella catarrhalis, adenovirus. There are only 3 or 4 organisms you have to remember here. And that is also true for your particular tonsillitis also. Okay. And fungi are seen in the middle ear fluid, almost all the ones wherever they are collected and stained. Whether they are of the normal individuals only or diseased individuals is not understood till now. And this is very important. Madam, you show that HIV, very important. HIV is reported to have a higher rate of middle ear problems, very important. The patients with HIV disease, they present with middle ear problems. Okay. So they have got most with effusion, were identified with chronic middle ear disease. Next point. Next slide.
Allergy. The evidence for allergy as a causative factor in otitis media with effusion is mainly reported in pediatric studies. In a large Norwegian study, the authors found surgery for otitis media to be more common in subjects who reported an allergy. A researcher reported 71 of a group of 87 adults having positive responses to nasal allergen challenges, and 119 of the 131 positive challenges resulted in eustachian tube dysfunction, leading to significant audiometric changes. We concluded that nasal allergy can lead to eustachian tube dysfunction.
I already told you allergy, obstruction, and infection. Allergy is the second point that is given here. The first point I am dealing is causative factor in pediatric studies. First point. And in other study, they have done first point only I am telling you. Otitis media to be more common who have allergy. Imagine allergy is there in the nose. If allergy is there in the nose, it is also there in the eustachian tube. It is also spreading towards the middle ear. Imagine the mucociliary clearance is not good. Imagine that lot of secretions come in the middle ear. They stay out like that only. Imagine they form the otitis media with effusion. Okay. The second point says that nasal allergen challenges, there is a lot of patients responding to that, and they all resulted in eustachian tube dysfunction, leading to significant audiometric changes. Eustachian tube dysfunction leads to what? B-type curve. B-type curve, otitis media with effusion. You should keep it in your mind. And allergy is important factor is the last point. Next.
Barotrauma. Barotrauma from air flights, typically during descent, is a common cause of otitis media with effusion in adults, particularly when traveling with an upper respiratory tract infection. Spontaneous resolution within a few days of landing is the usual course of events, but if this fails to occur, medical evaluation is required. There are no reliable data on the incidence of blue ear in adults following air travel. Hyperbaric oxygen treatment can also cause otitis media with effusion, although in most cases this will resolve without the need for ventilation tube insertion.
So barotrauma, I am a typical example. I will tell my experience. I was traveling from Chennai to Cochin to Chennai in a flight with a upper respiratory tract infection. During the descent, especially I had during the descent, I had URTI, therefore I had a blocking of my eustachian tube, and it led to formation of otitis media with effusion. So I took almost 6 weeks medication. So please, other people, please kind